This is going to be a lot of fun. And when you come out of this session, I want you to think about whether you're going to end up being an optimist for pharma's role in digital health or a pessimist, or perhaps a third route, which I call a pes-optimist, something in between here. And so we've got a really great panel. I'm just going to give a few introductory remarks and then ask the panelists to introduce themselves and say a few words about their own background and their perspective and experience. We're in an environment in 2024 where the last couple quarters I was able to check that digital health funding is down about 26% broadly, not just from pharma, but across the industry, 26% quarter over quarter, according to CB Insights. Since the peak of 2021, it's down to about 75% from that peak, but still a sizable 13 billion globally. And we can't help but notice particularly some of the challenges that digital health and pharma have had combined in the past, and there's a couple notable examples that stick out, particularly in the digital therapeutic space. One is paratherapeutics as one example, and also Proteus, right? Are two examples of companies that received a very large amount of investment but ended up in Chapter 11 bankruptcy. So we have some reason to be cautioned, but we also have reason to be very optimistic about digital health writ large, because when we take a step back, digital health is a pretty big umbrella, and I think we're going to explore today a little bit about how pharma is rethinking what that really means and the opportunities there too. So we'll get going, and I'm going to ask our panelists to start from my far left and just say a few words about your role today and your background.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. So what I'm trying to figure out is how can we help, as we are providing our therapies to the healthcare system, how can we maximize the value that these therapies, these assets create? And what usually happens is that, we don't get the patients on therapies early enough. Maybe they don't stay on the therapies long enough. So there's a whole range of services and solutions that exist in the industry, digital, optimization, consulting. So I'm working on figuring out, for individual therapies, how can we help accelerate those patient journeys from this early stage in the patient journey when patients don't even know they have a condition, all the way to getting the therapy, the right therapy, and which are the industry partners that can help us accelerate that journey. And today I'm going to be sharing experience both from Novartis but also from other companies, so all opinions are just my own opinions.
Hi everyone, I'm partner of a fund named Elaia. Elaia is a Paris-based venture fund, but we're investing pan-European. We invest in early stage B2B tech company from a couple $100K up to 10, 12 million first ticket, then we keep for follow-ons. We've been here for the past 22 years now, and we have close to 1 billion under management. And we've been entering the field of health 6 years ago. We have now 20 plus company in between digital health, tech bio and biotech company. So we're doing everything from prevention to invasive treatment. And I have to say that the go-to-market towards pharma is the most painful. In health in general, so I will start to be kind of pessimistic and I'll try to be pessimistic or whatever at the end, but I have to say, yeah, the go-to-market towards pharma is really long sales cycle and will be challenging this maturity, but very interesting time frame for the past 5-6 years, and I will share a bunch of stories if needed. Thanks.
Hi everyone, I'm Maite. I lead investments and corporate development at Asabys. Asabys is a pretty new fund, especially compared with Elaia. We started back in 2019. We have 300 million in assets under management. We are actually headquartered here in Barcelona. And we do 50% of our investments in biotech. The other 50% is health technologies. Health technologies includes both digital health, but also invasive, like deep invasive medical device, diagnostics, and so forth. And we usually invest between seed to Series B. And I'm excited about this conversation also because we actually, in Fund 1, we had a thesis of really investing in digital therapeutics. We always thought, pharma was going to be the great acquirer or some of these companies. And of course, that has changed a lot in the past 4 or 5 years. But still investing in digital health. And we have some nice stories about companies doing great in our portfolio with pharma. So let's see.
Great. Thank you, Maite. And we're going to hear a few of those examples too as we get into it. And by the way, I'm Chris Khoury. I'm with the American Medical Association, visiting from Washington, D.C. It's great to be in this wonderful city. We spend a lot of time thinking about how physicians and providers in general adopt and implement digital health technologies. So we come from that perspective, and similar to Matisse, my opinions are my own here today. So let's start a little bit with the current state, and I'll come back to Matisse, who, by the way, is also a physician by training too, correct? You've led digital health initiatives both at Medtronic, a medical device company, and now Novartis. So what's your assessment today of where pharma really stands in terms of the opportunity of digital health? It's evolved over the past years, as we've just heard a little bit of the opening remarks, but what's working and what's not?
Yeah, I wish I could say I'm, extremely excited, but I'm more on the kind of pessimistic side.
You got it, pessimistic
side. I think with regards to digital health in general, I think we're, of course it's cyclical like anything else, and I think we're now at the bottom of that slump. Of course, anything that has an AI label slapped on it, of course, is a slightly different story. But looking at the digital health in general, I think we're just experiencing that slump. Now, is it going to stay? I don't think so. I think it's going to pick up as it always does. But it's just a tough time at the moment. And I had this very interesting insight. Just last week, I was talking to a colleague from a different company, a different pharma company, and he told me something that I was a little bit shocked at that realization. He said, you know what? One of the reasons why this all went to the ground at the moment is that some of us really pitched digital health internally. It's like these people who were digital health leaders internally in pharma. We really pitched it as a hockey stick thing. Like, this thing is going to be, the next whatever. And we didn't deliver. So he was being self-critical of the promises that they made internally about the potential, which doesn't mean that there isn't potential. It's just that they oversold it. And anything you oversell, it's going to create issues. So I think that's one of the reasons for the slump that we see today. It's not about digital health not delivering. It was about being oversold internally to the leadership about the potential and the speed of implementation and the speed of getting impact done. That's I think.
Yeah, great. And turning to you, Maite, you mentioned the split that you've had within the your investment approach of therapeutics and digital health companies. Are you seeing the same dynamic in terms of companies that perhaps overpromised and different waves in this kind of cyclical nature of what companies are now promising in terms of success today?
I think some of the things that we saw was probably companies not realizing, and even us, this is something we've learned, how hard it was to actually implement and stay and grow, not only with the pharmas, we've seen this also with payers, with medical device companies. So especially with pharmas, we all thought probably that was something that pharmas were going to pick up and start commercializing from day one or using internally from day one. And what we've seen now is that, and you can correct me because you know way more, but probably selling to these digital departments within pharma, for us, is not the right way to go, to be honest. It's winning the internal departments within the pharmas that actually have an issue and that could leverage these digital health technologies to actually solve some of these issues. And that way, we have some nice case. Sidekick Health is one of our portfolio companies. They're here today. And they've succeeded partnering with pharmas. They have a ton of pharmas that they've partnered with for different type of therapeutic areas and using it for different type of reasons. Like, it's not only medication adherence and this type of companion apps, but also using it during, let's say, more the R&D side of the pharma, so helping with all their R&D development, digital biomarkers, but also clinical trials. And now with the new regulations that are coming up, like for example with the obesity drugs and all of this, there's going to have to be some type of regulation on how you're prescribing these drugs, who's using these drugs, how do you select the patients that are going to benefit from these drugs. So the digital tools really help you with this. So we've, let's say, changed a little bit the scope on how we see and who do we bet for.
Yeah, that's a great point around scope and the investment thesis, the scope of your investment thesis. And Samantha, again, in your experience, you had multiple sector backgrounds, yourself in digital, life sciences, therapeutics. Do you agree with the assessment so far of our other two speakers? What do you think pharma is missing in your case?
We're not coming from the health industry. So we started 22 years ago, and we were and we're still very well known, not in the health industry, but much more in the ad tech or retail. So this is something that what you were talking about, the pharma industry, that the startups are over promising and not delivering, and that the market is not ready. This is something that we used to hear, right, in every single vertical. So, and like the pharma industry is one of them, and this is the way it should be. Like this is a question of maturity of the market as well. So I tend to agree on the fact that at one point it's going to increase at some point, right? We're at zero stage, so it should increase, right? We can go below zero, right? So this is the first statement. The second one is we've been looking, because we were not from the health industry, we've been looking at the health industry like chasing a lot for the past 5 years, trying to be very exhaustive and trying to, because we needed to have this kind of intelligentsia to make sure that we fully understand what we investigate. And I have to say that not a lot of companies are understanding how to shape their product, their go-to-market, their pricing model to be part of this food value chain. And they're coming saying, okay, I have clinical proof. Like, okay, but it's not enough. I have to say that, I'm sorry, but after 5 years in this market, the passion is not the priority. You can have like something like crazy about the passion. It might, but it might not for other reason, not like pursue the market and touch the market they want to go. So this is something that I did not realize, and I was really naive at the beginning. I thought that the priority was the passion, which it is at the end. But in between, if you're not feeding one of the main stakeholders of this market, while it's increasing the top line or helping them to decrease the spendings, basics, I would say, it's harsh. The go-to-market is harsh. Third thing about the pharma industry is that, and we've been investing in biotech companies, we've been selling, we were kind of lucky to invest in a company in oncology named Meglic that was sold to Eli Lilly quite recently. After 3 years of investment, I didn't know that was possible because I was very naive on this one. But we were lucky, let's say. Yeah. And we've done some investment towards pharma, coming from the tech bio and becoming biotech company. For example, Academia in AI for drug discovery. They've been raising quite a lot of money. They're now entering a strong partnership with Sanofi and other players, but they're becoming a biotech themselves, meaning that, okay, they find out a lot of molecules for others, and why not to become the... And so for me, after 5 years in this space, maybe a couple things. The pharma, for now, is not mature enough to buy something else than molecules, or maybe some tools that will help them to monitor the clinical trial to get faster to the market. This is the only thing that I've seen like breaking a bit the rules about the pharma industry. Otherwise, if you're selling biomarkers, if you're selling data, what's the price of a data of a patient? And maybe last thing about the maturity of the markets, I'm always very surprised when we're coming from my work and we're talking about AI, Gen AI, LLM, and all the things, and you're going to an hospital and there's not the Wi-Fi that is working, and you're like, it's not going to work. Never, ever, right? Yeah. So we have to tackle this reality and try to be always very linked to the ground, meaning that the reality is that they have other problems. We have a company, for example, in real-world data, real-world evidence, that is structuring hospital data. Yeah, but I mean, pain in the ass. You have to have the information and the data from the hospital. There is no Wi-Fi in the hospital. Yeah. It's really complicated. So at the end, the pharma is asking you from like global data from all over the world, and you're not even finding a solution to crack the ball for a teeny Belgium hospital, right? Yeah. And you're like, they wanting something that I won't provide anymore. I won't provide, not for now. So. That's maybe what you were talking about this over-promising. They are over-promising. This is something that we'll be able one day to tackle, but for now, it tends to be quite impossible. That's why we're kind of pessimistic on this one. Yeah. Sorry, long story short.
No, it's great. You bring up a couple really important points. One is this notion that maybe pharma is a leopard that can't change its spots, right? That it's looking, at the end of the day, after the shiny objects goes away, it wants to increase its pipeline. It wants to increase the efficiency with the way they do clinical trials. Do we have the model wrong in the sense that there's a big B2B opportunity with pharma in terms of these companies versus so much of the digital health forays we've seen being, at least in the US context, it's been mostly consumer oriented? So is there something more to explore there? And any of you perhaps may have a thought there.
I think there's a clear cut when it comes to research, development, and clinical. That's obviously a B2B thing, right? So pharma is obviously going to pay for things that help pharma do a better job on the R&D clinical development side. When it comes to the commercial aspects, I think that's a different ballgame, because there, we as well, when people approach us to partner on the commercial side, I'm usually very clear. I say, don't expect us to pay you something. We can go together, we can create a value proposition together, and we can go to the market together, and you can leverage our sales channels and our expertise and the knowledge domain. But don't expect us to purchase licenses for you if it's something that we're jointly commercializing. We're not the payer here. I think that's a common misconception. That's one misconception. And the other key issue I see is just the matching, the companies that approach us. So if these companies are, you will know this much better, but there's companies approaching us who want to help us improve patient identification and diagnostics, which of course is interesting for us because it helps patients get diagnosed faster and get to the therapies faster. But they approach us at the phase where they're unable to commercially be available or scale. And we are not interested in those, right? So there's just a waste of time on both sides. So we get used to just say, guys, come back when you have CE marking, when you have 4 countries, etc. But there's still a lot of effort wasted also from the startups. They keep coming. And even today I spoke to a couple, and I'm just saying, you're too early. You need to talk to the R&D folks maybe, but you're even early for them. But then commercial is you need to be ready for that.
No. Maybe if I can have, I had this discussion with a peer of you in other former company, Sanofi, to name it, and he's the head of oncology at Sanofi. So for me, I was like, okay, we're trying to build kind of a family of KOLs. For me, it was the boss, right? Head of oncology at Sanofi, and I was keep on pushing startups, right, on oncology. And one day he called me and he said, can you please stop sending me some startup? I'm like, what? There's not something to do here? Like this one is enable you to do this and this, and it's like, Samantha. So, I just took my responsibility of head of onco at Sanofi. Last year I was at Astra, and honestly, I don't know where I will be in 12, 15 months, 24 months from now, right? Now, my mission, my core focus is on pancreas. So yes, you can send me something on pancreas if you want to, if it fits to my roadmap, but otherwise I don't care. And I'm not blaming him. I'm just saying that when you're a startup, you have to make sure that first you're talking to the right people, because he can be the head of whatever at the end. If he's not the payer, if he's not the the ones that will be willing to pay, like, it doesn't matter. Second, you have to be and understand the roadmap of those players to make sure that you're here at the right moment, because otherwise you spend your time to nothing and you lose your time. So this is the kind of things that I didn't realize in the right persona. This is something that we're asking in every single vertical, right? But again, in the pharma, it's so true. And there is a bit of politics, I have to say, inside pharma company that we don't get. And that's why you need really to shape your go-to-market strategy to make sure that you're talking to the right person. And you were talking about B2C or B2 patient, US versus Europe. This is something that we're lacking, and we're lagging a lot. We're not used to pay for health in Europe.
No.
That's it. So we're losing a lot of things that might happen in Europe, but that won't happen ever, because we're not paying for your health. So there is a lot of conclusion and output in terms of data from patients and so that we don't get. We don't have this. In the US, you can pay 9 euros or 10 euros, $10 per month for having a mental health application that in Europe, it doesn't work. We're not used to this.
I just think some of the failures come also from the like this bubble that there was. And I think it was oversold sometimes by the pharmas also. Like, look at Biogen. Biogen created this huge team of digital health, and in 2023, they shut it down, 150 people out. So I think a lot of the startups were sold or believed that pharmas were creating this digital because digital was the thing now, innovation was the thing. But in the end, they're not going to partner just to partner and as a marketing tool. They might at the beginning, but it all ended in pilots that were nothing. So the realization has come on, in the end, you have to solve a problem. It either has to be with cost reduction or efficiency, but they need to benefit somehow. They're just not going to partner just to be, I don't know, more innovative than the other. Like, in the end, they have to sell this internally, and if they need to pay for this, it has to really provide a direct value. So I think there is where a lot of us or our portfolio companies we've been trying to focus on let's find who's the right payer for this and who's going to be willing to pay. And sometimes instead of focusing on the big logos, generate some traction with the smaller players that might be willing to differentiate themselves and actually partner somehow. We have a company in the US now that spent a year and a half trying to close Mount Sinai, Mayo Clinic, like the names that we all know. They're still there, just pilots, and there's one device maybe. Yeah. And it's like, why don't you focus on other regional hospitals that are willing to try this, even if it's for free, and then there's some grants coming from the same, regions or countries. So I think it's, the tough thing now is I think it's a time for us to be creative. Yeah. And all of these digital startups need to be really creative on what they do next in order to generate, because what everyone's asking for now, even as investors, is show me traction. And they're like, well, give me funds so that I can show you traction. Yeah. So we're just going in circles. Yeah. And I just feel the winners are going to be the ones that are able to generate some traction and prove that there's a market need for us so that we're all then betting on them.
Yeah, great. So we're in the lightning round now with about less than 5 minutes left. So I'll ask some rapid fire questions to you all, and I do want to look at the optimistic side too. And Maite, in my research around, you're in the second fund, right?
Yep.
For Asabys, and Sidekick Health stands out as sort of a bright spot here. Tell us a little more about what they've done right here in engaging pharma, but also the payer side too, if that's the case.
I think some things that Sidekick did very well was they knew where to focus and who to focus on, and that were the pharmas at the beginning, and they were co-development programs with them. So they had this very nice, let's say, application technology that they were able to prove the pharma that they were getting engagement from the patient. So this is an application that's targeted to chronic patients. And what they did very smartly was like, it's not just an app for medication adherence for my patients, where the patient is just going to go there and is going to have notifications. It's actually rewarding patients if they do it right. So if the patient was taking the drug, they would be rewarded in a way saying, you just donate to causes that the patients care about. So they were donating money to causes that patients care about. So you just donated water to UNICEF in Africa, or you just planted this many trees because you took your medicine. So that was a way that you were showing that the patients were doing it. So when they were able to generate this data and show that to the pharma realized, and that Bayer, Pfizer, now Novo, Eli Lilly with the more on the obesity side. There was the first test of saying, we have this amazing product that's really gonna help you, you know, like sell your drugs in conjunction with this therapy. So they did that, and that was one of the first ones. But they've been able to innovate very quick to now seeing that with prescription drugs and the obesity problem that I'm talking about, where everyone's being prescribed Wegovy or these type of drugs, there's going to be some type of regulation there saying, okay, who's supposed to get these drugs and who's not? So why don't we innovate and create a product now that is going to be able to track the patient and see if that patient is actually the patient to get that drug prescribed. So it's going now together with the regulators and the pharmas to make sure that the right patients are getting prescribed the drugs. So I think they've been able to really innovate and stay on top of the needs pretty successfully. I mean, the jury's still out there. They haven't done it. I mean, they're there and they're growing, but it's one of the companies that at least have been able to succeed and maneuver.
Great, thank you for that, Maite. And Samantha, you may have some success stories you want to highlight. I also want to see if we can make Matisse's job easier here with your help. So should pharma be involved in corporate venture capital right now, or should they really be
Definitely
spending
Do you have some money?
our partnerships really, you know, a more effective route? What you in your role as a VC,
This is what we try to build, to be completely honest. Not having pharma. There is some of my peers that are pharma as LPs, so limited partner clients of the fund. We try not to have that kind because there's too much of conflict of interest at the end, but and there's not a lot that are doing so, but it happens. I'm much more have this kind of envy and desire to build a family around not just our startup, but a family that can talk to each other on a quarterly basis between KOLs at pharma in different departments to make sure that we fully understand the main problem that you have and that we can tackle with the technology. And we kind of the intermediary here. We're seeing a bunch, like we're receiving 4,000 company per year. I think like 30-40% of them are in digital health as a whole. So there is a lot of companies, and we can make this link between the technology and the pharma while we understand their needs, right? So this is what we're trying to do on a quarterly basis with your peers, you and others, to make sure that we fully understand what I've done with the guy from Sanofi that said, okay, pancreas, that's it. And it happens that I sent him a startup that we did not invest in, Oracle, that just raised 11 million, I guess, not with us, but I just sent it to him because they were talking and they were working on pancreas cancer, and it happens that they've met business together because it was pretty on spot. And this is what we are useful for, making sure that we're making this link between the deal flow that we're receiving and tons of companies that we're receiving and your needs, and yeah, trying us to build some business case between the technology and we have some use cases that are like I already talked about Academia, Meglic, and others, and a company in the marketplace for clinical trial that was not published yet, but we just invest in the company, and they just track the business model with pharma, and they now have like big pharma company as clients in millions in contracts. So that's cool. So there is an optimistic view of seeing things, and we have to build this ecosystem with you and the investor.
That's a great point to end on. Matisse, I'll give you the last word, and I think we have to wrap up. So.
No, I didn't plan because we're already running late. But you know, I think I've seen so many cool, you know, non-invasive, minimally invasive biomarkers coming up. I'm really excited about that space because it just unlocks a lot of new innovation. So for me, I'm excited about that field.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Great place to end. Thank you all for your attention.